In the year 1610, Elizabeth Bathory was arrested for allegedly torturing and killing 650 women. But Elizabeth Bathory was a powerful woman who ruled in the absence of her husband. So is she one of the most prolific serial killers of all time, not just female, but any serial killer? Or is she a powerful woman who's been given the Anne Boleyn treatment? I'm going to give you the evidence and I'll let you decide. Let's start by looking at Bathory's rap sheet. Now, she is accused of a whole host of gruesome crimes. She beats women, she starves them, she keeps them in a torture chamber, she bites them, she freezes them, she shoves needles down the end of their nails, she slathers them in honey and lets bees at them. And this is all for somewhere between 80 women and 650 women. That is a lot of women to torture and kill in a lifetime, but that is what she's accused of. Now, a relative of hers, a guy called Georgi Thurzo, was the court palatine for what was then the Kingdom of Hungary, and he is appointed by the king, King Matthias, to look into these crimes of Bathory's. Now, there are some rumours of this sort around Bathory. Bathory is born in 1560 in the Kingdom of Hungary. Now, she belongs to a very powerful family and she's educated. She speaks 4 languages. And as a teenager, she's married to Count Ferenc Nadasdy in 1575. Now, 3 years into their marriage, Nadasdy, who's obviously a powerful man himself, he becomes appointed chief commander of the Hungarian troops. And he's off kind of leading various conflicts, mostly against the Ottoman Empire. Now, what does this leave? This leaves an educated, powerful woman at home in charge of their estates. And she had a lot of responsibilities. It was kind of her responsibility to look after the welfare of her estates, the people that belonged to the estates. And it seems like she also provided some medical care to people along route, soldiers and things like that. So Elizabeth Bathory is a powerful, very educated woman. And her husband is gone most of the time. All is going well, and yet in 1604, Nadasdy dies. And this is when rumours about her start to circulate. Is this because he's no longer around to protect her and she is a political target? Or is it just that she'd been committing these crimes and at this point they are beginning to multiply? Now, bear with me while I show you how much of a political target she is. Now, we know that she is a powerful woman who runs multiple estates, she's very wealthy, she's very educated, and her husband, who should be controlling her in these days, is now gone. She is a single, powerful woman. Let's make her more of a political target. Now, at this point, the Kingdom of Hungary is ruled by the Habsburgs. Now, the Habsburgs are Catholic. Bathory, she is a Protestant, okay? And there is evidence to suggest that she had a printing press. Now, a printing press in this period they are so rare across Europe. We don't know what she was printing. What is she printing? Let's keep making her a target. Now, her nephew, Prince Gabor, he rules Transylvania. And what he wants is independence from the Habsburgs for Hungary. Discrediting Bathory, a member of his family, only serves the Habsburgs well. Did Gabor want independence enough that he might have considered military action against the Habsburgs? If that were to happen, to whom would he turn? To his powerful female relative who held all of these lands and estates? He might well have done. As soon as she was arrested, her lands are forfeit. Taking them away from her not only took things away from her, they took them away from Gabor as well. Now, do you remember Thurzo, the guy that is investigating all of these crimes? He's already been involved in an assassination attempt on, yes, our friend Prince Gabor. And he's actually got designs on putting his own son as the ruler of Transylvania in Gabor's kind of seat. Now, it doesn't really feel like he is an impartial judge to judge whether or not Elizabeth Bathory committed these crimes. And at this point, it's starting to feel like a real setup for me. Now, if we look at the reports by Thurzo, he says when he goes to Bathory's castle, he finds lots of injured people. Now, it's very likely that there were injured people at Bathory's castle. We already talked about the fact that as chatelaine, she was responsible for their medical care, so there might well have been sick and unwell people there. And there's more evidence to suggest that potentially Bathory might have ran a school for young women. And perhaps some of these wounded that she saw were people that Bathory was actually caring for. There's a Dr. Bailey who is an associate professor at Cambridge, and her hypothesis is actually that Bathory was a radical feminist who had a printing press. She was a religious subversive. We know that she was Protestant in a time when that was subversive, and that she was educating vast scores of young women in her castle, and that all of these things made her a target, a political target for people like Matthias and Thurzo. Now let's come back to King Matthias. So we know that Thurzo has his own kind of agenda into looking into Bathory, but what about Matthias? Well, Matthias, the king, he owes Bathory a massive debt. Now, guess what gets cancelled the day she's arrested? That's right, the debt. We call that a motive around these parts. Now, this is not evidence, this is speculation, but if you look at the profile of female serial killers, they're often not, kind of sexual sadists. They tend to be angels of death. They tend to be women who are nurses or work in care homes that hurt vulnerable people like babies or old people. They are pragmatic killers. They kill, the baby farmers of the 19th century would kill multitudes of children that they've been paid to look after. Or women do revenge killings. They kill husbands and things like that. You don't tend to find women killing 650 other women. But that's not to say that it didn't happen, because of course in history anything is possible and truth is often stranger than fiction. So how was she convicted? Well, there were 2 trials held, and in those trials her servants, the ones that are going to be executed later, were tortured and testified against her and said that yes, it had happened and that they'd done it all under her orders. If you're wondering where the number 650 comes from, one of the servants reported that it came from one of her private books, which was never found and never presented in her trial. The number 650 is ridiculous, guys. Who's got time to kill 650 people? Even Vlad the Impaler didn't work that hard. Or maybe he did, but still. You have to look at the other side of the coin. Did she do it? It's a pretty weird allegation to make about someone to try and bring them down. And actually the rumours about her start spreading long before her husband dies, and they're actually raised not by a Catholic, not by someone in power, but by a priest, a guy called Magyari. Now he's a Protestant, not a Catholic, so it kind of gets rid of the idea that she's been brought down by Catholics who didn't like that she was a Protestant. They're different branches of Protestantism, so perhaps, there is conflict there, but still these rumours start off small and over time become bigger and bigger. Now, is it that the guys who were in power that wanted to bring her down, they had heard these rumours and used these rumours to bring her down? Or was there some truth to them? Usually there is no smoke without fire. We always have to wonder about Anne Boleyn. Most scholars would say that Anne Boleyn didn't do the things that she's accused of, and that the whole thing is a fix-up job by Thomas Cromwell and Henry VIII to bring her down because Henry VIII wanted rid of her. It's very easy to accuse a woman of adultery because it is your word against hers, especially when you're torturing your witnesses, which is what's going to happen here, you'll soon see. They can't accuse Bathory of adultery because her husband has died, he's made no complaints. So they have to grasp something. But it is an odd thing to accuse a person of, torturing and killing women? Or is it that she had a school and that there were always all of these women here, and it became a very useful tool to use against her? At arrest, Bathory is protected because she's a noblewoman, so they just put her on house arrest, although obviously they cancel her debts and they take all of her estates. Her servants, her 4 closest servants, are not quite so lucky. One of them manages to evade apprehension and disappears for a bit and then is put on kind of a life sentence. 2 of them have a horrific experience. Their fingers are torn out with red hot pincers and then they are burned at the stake. And then one of them is given a much better fate and beheaded. So, as usual, the guys that always come off the worst in this are always kind of the lowborn people, which is awful and terrible because likely they didn't do anything. But Bathory herself is put on house arrest, which must have been horrific for a powerful, independent woman like Elizabeth Bathory. The evening of the 20th of August, 1614, Bathory complains to her guard that she's cold, and he says, "It's nothing, miss, just go and lie down." And the next morning, she's found dead. Now, this is 4 years after she's been arrested. She's been in house arrest for all of this time, and they want to kind of bury her there, but there's uproar because the villagers think she's a witch, and so she eventually gets buried in her family crypt at Exeter. Now, this sounds like a very sad end to a very powerful and independent woman, and we don't know, the facts are, we don't know what she was doing. Was she a religious subversive? Did she have a school for women? Or was she a horrific mass murderer? We really don't know. I just don't think the evidence is there for us to definitively say one way or another. But what does strike me is the similarities to kind of Anne Boleyn, who was a woman who dared to live in a way that the society of the time said she shouldn't. You know, she wanted to change the religion. She thought she could change a king and she couldn't. And we know very little about Bathory, about what she believed, what her goals were. Is it likely that she was brought down because other people wanted to control her estates and they did not like that a woman continued to rule after her husband's lifetime? She didn't quietly retire to a nunnery. Who knows? I'm really interested to see your opinion. I would love to know what you think. Please leave me comments underneath. Yes, I'm dressed like a clock this week. Who had that on their bingo scorecard? I certainly didn't. If you like these videos, please do like and subscribe because it really helps small channels like mine. If you like the gruesome and the gory, check out my Byron video where I will tell you what he looks like in his coffin. And I will also tell you what Henry VIII looked like in his coffin in 1813 if you're interested, and also Charles I. They are both in the Charles I video. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.